10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Welcome back to 10 Steps Further. We have Chad in the house.
Feeling good, feeling healthy.
Or as we learned on a previous episode.
Blinks.
You
can find me at Instagram at Blinks.
You have to go back to that episode and find out why he's named Blinks.
Blinks, yeah, go back.
The previous episode. It's a good story.
All right. What are we talking about?
We're talking about I'm going to start with this. It's a Greek axiom.
Okay.
And it says this: know thyself.
Okay.
That it's important that you know who you are, what your status is, and we're going to invite God into this. What does God think of you? This is very important.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start off with this story. I don't know if I've told it on the podcast, but it's one of my very favorite from high school.
Okay.
Okay, so I started playing basketball as a sophomore in high school.
All right.
Like, I really had never played organized basketball at all, and I did make varsity.
Okay.
But
who would have won in a match, one-on-one? In high school, Jonathan in high school or Jack in high school?
Okay, so I wouldn't take him on in high school, but in college I would.
Okay.
Because I was just starting, right?
Yeah, okay.
You gotta ramp me up. So in high school, you were starting at point guard or shooting guard?
In high school?
Yeah.
See, I hit 6 foot tall in like 8th grade.
You were forward.
So I was a big boy. And then by the time I was a senior in high school, I was with point guard.
Yeah, right.
Because I didn't grow anymore.
Right. I was a forward. I was a 6'1" forward.
Okay. Yeah.
But I handed towels and glasses of water to the other players.
Oh man, we had a kid that did that, and we called him Ferret.
Really?
Derek was his name.
Derek the Ferret.
Derek, and we called him Ferret.
I could see that.
And at practice, he would shoot half-court shots.
So I was a practice player.
You were Ferret. So we got Blinks and Ferret.
I was a practice player. I came on, during routes or preseason games when it just did not matter.
Yeah.
When we were getting crushed. I remember one time they put me in a game because we were down by 10 and the starters were playing terrible. And the only reason the coach did it said, "See, if you don't play harder, I'm putting Hawkins in." I am not kidding you.
Oh,
that is a true story. So there was a kid on my team that looked just like me.
Yeah.
And so he was a sophomore. He was very good. Paul Thomas.
His name was Larry Bird.
No, Paul Thomas. Great guy.
Wayne Gretzky.
We have refriended on Facebook, and I hope he hears this. And maybe I'll send it to him. But
what's up, Paul?
At the end of the year, when they're handing out postseason awards, he made all CIF, and they put my picture in the paper.
No way.
It was
you guys look that much alike?
Great. I don't know that we look that much alike. Paul thinks he is much better looking than I am.
And it said his name on everything.
His name,
That's
everything,
fantastic.
my grill.
I actually have not heard that story.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've heard every story from you. In a good way, because we hang out so much.
Know thyself. That's a great story to tell in that. So I'm always amazed. Jonathan and I argued about this. I'm continually surprised because I can't sit in a group of people without asking them some kind of question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food? What's your favorite movie? And people are always like, I don't know. It's a really hard question. No, it's not. It's you, man. Just answer it.
No, see, I feel like I can answer my favorite. I feel like I can answer my favorites. And people have asked me what my favorite food is, and I always go to sushi.
Okay. Yeah. See, this is a defined human being.
Very emotionally intelligent.
Jonathan can't do that.
No.
Okay, although I do get you with the movies, though. Because movies, I say, well, it's in my top 5. And then my wife goes, Chad, every movie's in your top 5. You have your top 5 is like top 30.
Yeah, now you got like 100.
So it's hard to narrow down some.
Okay, so
food,
push back, Jonathan.
You know your favorite food, right?
Push back.
No. Well, yeah, I mean, like right now, what might my favorite food be? Like, I mean, that's the thing is like it depends on what I'm hungry for and what I've previously eaten, and like.
I'm surprised you don't have a favorite food.
Okay, so let me just say this right now. Right now, your favorite food is anything. Because Jonathan came in hungry. In fact, you'll notice that today he's hangry.
Yeah. I'm ready to go.
You know those granola bars that look like they look like sanding blocks, like
Right.
really hard. He ate 3 of them before this podcast.
That was breakfast.
And and that was my favorite food that I've had today. But yeah, favorite is like this. I mean, it's just exclusive. It's like, what are you going to be when you grow up? What you're really asking is, what are all the billions of things you're not going to be when you grow up? Like when you say, what is your favorite movie, you're basically saying, what are all the movies that are not as good as the one you're about to say? So an easy answer is, tell me the name of a movie that you really, really liked. Instant answer for pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
But favorite is exclusive, and you're saying
It puts a little pressure on you too.
yeah, you're just
You're
like,
oh, I gotta really narrow it down.
yeah. What's
Oh my
favorite
gosh,
movie?
you guys
yeah.
need to just get over it. Just
I think-
answer. Like, what am I going to hold you to this?
It's just a bad
like,
question.
I could never
It's just a
come.
bad question. I'm not going to lie to you, Jack. I'm not going to lie to you. What's your favorite movie?
See?
Inception. Wait, maybe
Okay,
not. Maybe
honestly,
it's Batman.
Honestly, people, as you're listening, he sounds angry, doesn't he, today?
I'm very angry.
He's very... Okay, we'll go get you some food as soon as we're done. I'm just always like, people, I don't know that they know who they are.
Okay.
That they know. And like, it doesn't really matter, all right? Favorite movie, favorite food.
Yeah, yeah.
Those questions don't necessarily matter. How about this? Can we ask this one?
Okay.
Favorite breakfast cereal? Can you answer
Oh,
that one,
easily
Jonathan?
Frosted Flakes.
No, I can't.
Really?
You can't.
Yeah.
What
That
is a-
shocks me.
Jonathan,
You
what
literally-
is a cereal you really enjoy?
You literally have different cereals you get every
Yeah, I
week. You
don't-
get different cereal.
I pretty much don't eat cereal, but
Oh,
we
okay. Well, then-
have like
People
yeah,
that eat cereal
everything.
get
everything.
the
I
same
mean,
cereal.
like growing up, it was like, sweet Fruit Loops or Frosted Flakes or anything. Like it's
People
it's
that-
sugar.
People that still eat cereal, though, they typically have like a go-to cereal.
You just aren't playing along.
That's
You're
so
just
true.
not going to play along.
Yeah.
You're proving at this point that your
Okay.
question is better than mine.
Okay, this one then. Box of donuts. You got 12 donuts. It's got the assortment.
Yeah.
Which donut do you choose? What's your favorite?
I don't know, man.
Oh my god.
I don't know. Like
See,
I hope you're
Again,
watching on YouTube
again,
right now to
don't know.
just see our frustration.
Somebody get him a hamburger right now. Apple fritter.
Yeah, no. See, that's my least favorite. Like,
Okay.
that's,
Yeah,
if there's
okay.
a box of donuts, they're all good except for that apple fritter.
Yes.
And then we get these ones that have like a strawberry topping
I've
on them.
seen you eat the pink donut.
And yeah, and it's gross. That one's a nasty donut. So
That's funny.
But I had to learn by eating it. But yeah,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
anyway.
I'm gonna move on because
Pizza.
he's
Let's go with
just
pizza.
too upset right now.
I digress.
This is angering him. Here are the questions I think do matter.
okay.
Who you are, what's your value, what's your purpose, why were you put on this planet? A friend of mine used to put it like this. He said, 2 most important days of your life, day you were born and the day you realize why.
Okay.
How many people
great.
have that defined understanding of who they are and why they were actually put on this planet? I think that's important.
And that's what's so big in faith, because people often think that science and faith combat each other. You know, you can't believe in faith and believe in science. Where sometimes it does feel like science, I've heard people say, can be the language of God oftentimes. And
Okay,
science
sure.
oftentimes can maybe tell you the how of certain things, how this became or how something happened. But the one thing science never gives you is the why. It never tells you the why you're here. And that's where I think the truth of the scripture comes in, because it can tell you the why you are here.
Wow, that is big. Can you think of a time when you realized why you were here? Is there a moment? I know Jonathan's answer is no.
When I got the nickname Blinks. No, I'm kidding.
Prison. Yeah.
I think for me it was, I think when I had that really big coming to faith moment, which, keep in mind, I came to faith. I told Jonathan, like the Harvest Crusade, the big Greg Laurie,
Sure,
Billy
yeah.
Graham style. I think I was on that field giving my life to Jesus
Wow.
every
Yeah.
single year. So I gave my life to Jesus so many times. But then I think there was a couple moments in my incarceration where I really discovered, you know what, this is what I was put on this earth to do, and that was to if I believe in this faith, when I leave here, I'm gonna give my life to it, and that was my commitment. I
Right.
said, God, if I discover if you are real, if I discover you're real, I'm going to give my life to you. And that's when I really felt like, you know what, that's what I'm here to do, and that's to give my life to God.
And I'll tell you, man, it's a wonder to watch you do what you were designed to do. Like, I get a thrill watching you lead and watching your passion and watching you speak, because it's so obvious you're doing what God has called you to do.
Yeah, right.
Do you have that? Was there a moment, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, it was progressive. In so there were seasons where it would have been communicating. at some point. But then,
speaking, you're in a group. You're as you're speaking, people are responding, and you just feel God through you.
I point back to a moment when I spoke at a funeral of a guy named Ryan Hill, and he was killed, struck by lightning, walking home from school.
You're kidding.
And there was a whole. It was weird. I hardly knew him. And he was walking home from school he left school on a sunny day, had probably a 15-minute walk home. Before he got home, he was struck by lightning and killed. I was working like a half mile down the road, and as soon as I heard about it, my brain started putting together what would I say if I was speaking at his funeral. And then I was given his sister came up to me the next school day that we had and said, "This is going to sound really weird, but my parents want to know if you'll speak at Ryan's funeral." And I already had the whole thing planned, and I had no idea. Why would cool. I?
That's a trip.
There were like 500 people there, and it was just this like moment where I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And since then, I've had dreams and things where it's just like when I'm getting too far away from it, it's like, okay, you're not where you're supposed to be.
Okay,
and
sure.
I'll literally wake up knowing the purpose that I had.
I want to throw this out. It's easy, and maybe as you're listening and go, well, look, I wasn't called to do ministry, so like I'm out. What does that mean? I'm out.
Yeah.
I didn't get that call. There are times when I know that I was on the front row when God did something. Like I just reached out to somebody because they needed prayer, and wow, God showed up in that moment. In fact, actually, this is a terrible example because I'm going to do exactly what I just told you I wasn't going to do. But I was speaking at a funeral, and there was a guy named Jantz, and Jantz was a motorcycle rider. He was a professional, and went over the handlebars of his bike, and his neck broke. And he had been at our vacation Bible school, and I go, wow, what in the... I'm going to speak at this kid's funeral, and I have no idea whether or not he knew Jesus at all.
Yeah. Right.
And I was sitting across from a guy right before I was about to speak, and I said, hey, man, I don't know what I'm going to say. He was a chaplain for motocross, and the chaplain for motocross told me the story. He said, I was there on Friday when Jantz went over the handlebars, and they declared him dead, and they were looking to harvest his organs to whoever needed them. And on Saturday morning, he woke up, and he couldn't talk, but he could blink, and so I could communicate. And during that time, I led him to Christ through blinks.
Right.
And on Sunday, he died. So it's like God revived him in that. Wow. I was just in that front row when I saw something. But sometimes that happens with, we did a baptism yesterday with Chris Billand. And I met Chris. We were in this race, and Chris said, hey, can I have more pictures of the race? Because I'm stage 4. I don't know if I'm going to live till next year.
Yo, did you just see that spider fall from the ceiling onto my computer right now?
Wow.
Yeah. Decided to kill it. If you are watching on YouTube, I don't know how do I kills without ruining my computer.
I don't know.
Do you see that?
I do.
He won't ruin your computer.
Just squish it. Oh, PETA's calling now.
Oh my gosh, dude, that was ridiculous.
That was
Did
awesome.
you hear it?
Yeah,
yeah. Sorry, Jack. You got to go over.
Story.
We're not editing.
Okay, if you're not watching on YouTube, you've got to go over to our YouTube channel and just watch that one moment at about 13 minutes ish.
Crazy.
All right, sorry, Jack.
No problem.
Derailed.
So anyway, I'd met Chris because he said, hey, I want more pictures because I'm stage 4. I don't think I'll ever be in this race again.
Right.
We just reran the race.
Right.
Yesterday, we had a church service. We had to do it at my house because of coronavirus. And Chris pulls me aside and says, hey, just want you to know, I'm in remission. I'm in full remission right now from cancer.
Such a big
He
celebration.
just ran the race again. It's awesome.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, you might not be in ministry, but I heard one of my professors say it this way. Your ministry is wherever you're at. So wherever you find yourself today, maybe that is your ministry, and maybe God has put you in that place for a reason. Have you ever seen Will You Be My Neighbor? The new
I have, with Tom Hanks.
Yeah, the new Fred Rogers movie about Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
There's a great moment. We just started watching it. We're about halfway through, and he's calling this reporter that wants to do a series on him. The reporter's name's like Clay or anything. And Mr. Rogers said to him, he said, do you want to know what the most important thing is right now in my day, Clay? And Clay says, what? He said, talking to you. And I love that because I don't know if that's I don't know if it's actually a true story, Mr. Rogers. But if you know Mr. Rogers, that's possibly a true story.
Right.
And so I think the message there, the theme is maybe that most important thing of your day is wherever you find yourself and whoever's right in front of you.
I think that's manageable, and that is exactly, in my estimation, how Jesus lived.
Yeah. Amen.
Whoever was in front of him, he wasn't on a rush to someplace. But defining that, why I'm here, why I exist, I think can be difficult.
Yeah.
So I wanted to point a little bit to how one guy found it, and that's Moses in Exodus chapter 3. I just read this, that they did a study on the most influential Jews in history. Do you know where Moses ranks? All of history.
Number 2?
He is number 2. You read the notes.
No, I didn't. I was guessing. I don't even see it in the notes.
Number 2 all time.
I'm guessing
who's
Jesus
number
was
1?
Jesus.
Jesus
Let's
is
go.
number 1.
See?
That's right.
I don't even read. Man, can't we think I'm a cheater?
But as much as he is famous now, he was not willing early.
Yeah.
Okay, so this moment just changed his life. And I don't know if you can think about a day when your life just changed. It started out regular, and then this happened. But this is what happened to Moses. Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law. This is about 40 years after he was living in the palace, okay? He's just a shepherd. Shepherd was one of the lowest jobs that you could have. He led the flock to the far side of the wilderness. An angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. And Moses saw that through the bush, though the bush was on fire, it didn't burn up. So Moses thought, I'll go over and see this strange sight. Yeah, obviously. Why the bush doesn't burn up? When the Lord saw that he had gone over, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. Have you had a day like that when your life was changed just in that instant?
Yeah.
I mean, we're in, I don't know when this is going to post, but we'll probably still be in coronavirus fear.
Right.
Right? We're watching the basketball game that night, and all of a sudden they cancel the season. And we knew about it, but it became very real in that moment.
Right.
Based on what happens in this next week, before this podcast is going to get released in 2 weeks.
Right.
Who knows what could happen? That could sound like the most insensitive thing ever. Based on what happens, if this just gets crazy, and then if we have a podcast of you guys just mourning basketball.
Well, that was what our coronavirus podcast. I want to apologize for our coronavirus podcast because we were having a lot of fun with that. I think maybe sometimes it's good just to laugh through that.
Totally,
but,
it is. It's so funny though.
But our lives changed.
Yeah,
Right?
I was listening to a podcast and it was funny because you could tell they had recorded it. Everyone records podcasts pretty early. You could tell they recorded this one kind of before the coronavirus really took over the whole globe. And so this guy, I'm listening to the podcast and he's like, "Yeah, it's only in China right now," and he's talking about how it's in China right now. But then he's like, yeah, so we've been traveling to all these places.
Oh, wow.
And my guess is, the next podcast, he's going to be talking about how maybe we shouldn't have been traveling like that.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Was there a moment that your life totally changed? I mean, I would obviously go back to that day that you found out your dad was no longer with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny though, because it's it's a season. Most of that stuff is seasons.
Right.
Of it's coming. The day coming, it was
that was for
he's
sure.
out of the picture the whole time, but he's still there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we have seasons of change, and weirdly, I don't know why, but I love them. I love seasons of radical shift. But yeah, I mean, because it typically, I'm just we've talked about it before. I'm just always anticipating the next season's gonna be better.
So are you in a positive place right now? Because there's a lot of change.
Yeah, it's weird because you're trying to project what's going to happen, but I was just making a joke with my wife the other day. I was like, I'll finally get my dream to live in a van.
Right?
We won't be able to. Well,
man.
my dream to be homeless that I've had since I was a little kid, and just halfway joking.
So the way you dress is just kind of living into
yeah,
that
I'm
future
just
dream.
Yeah, exactly. So but it's. I don't know. I mean, you're just okay, worst case scenario, it really isn't that bad. In my mind, it's just even if all that we know collapses, it's still, I don't know. There's something about it. It's just we watch movies to experience these things.
Right.
To somehow experience the thrill of survival and we,
right.
But
we're in it.
And now we're in it. And it feels like we're in a movie.
It's a thrill in a movie.
Yeah.
It's panic in real life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's fear.
So,
I mean, it's actual fear in real life.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to throw this out, and I don't know if you're going to agree with this, So feel free to debate this.
Okay.
But to me, to truly know yourself, you need a revelation from God. There's a lot of ways that Chad's a millennial, so he's an Enneagram person. Like
Right.
you're all in on that.
Well, that's a pretty broad generalization of what I'm. It's not just Enneagram. I think what our generation is just passionate about right now that I think has gotten missed in the past is just emotional intelligence,
Right.
and kind of really understanding why you do the things you do. I think that's what I'm passionate about. If the Enneagram is one of those tools, then absolutely. But I think there's so many tools out there. There's other, not only just tests, but conversations and learning to do to really understand who you are as a person, what makes you tick, and how you can grow into that.
We just gave you a perfect example of both of our lifestyle or where we are at in our lives, right? Because you're a millennial, you're in touch with emotional intelligence, and I just asked you a question that was completely emotionally unintelligent, right?
Maybe a little.
Yeah, hey,
and
boomer.
then we have the guy who's just the bridge between the both of us.
Okay, so this is the way it worked with Moses. The Lord saw Moses, and Moses says, "Here I am." He says, "Don't come any closer. Take off your sandals. You're standing on holy ground." When Moses heard this, he covered his face. And then God said, "I've certainly seen the oppression of the people of Egypt. I've heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I'm aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt." And it's going to be him that leads them, that God uses in that moment. This is a true revelation from God that in that moment, he's defined. So if I say to people, you have to have a revelation from God to know who you are.
Right.
Push back on that. Or do you agree with that?
I think that people are at all different kind of stages of knowing who they are and who
Right,
they've been
sure.
created to be.
Right.
And some of them, some people just have just a very solid understanding. And I would say the best place to get that is from God, like
Right.
to know, like, this is what I was made to do. As where I think most people are just like, I don't know, I'm made to do this kind of. I'm like, I guess I'm good with cars, so I guess I was made to work on cars. And it's kind of general. I have met a few. I remember a buddy of mine, Gus. We were meeting at this church. We were at church meeting in a school, and Gus was the custodian at the school. And Gus was one of the few people that I've ever met who was in a job like he was in, who was like, I'm a custodian at this school because God made me to be a custodian at this school.
Right.
Yeah.
And he loved his job, and he poured into the school, and he served the people. And then he came to our church and met at his school, and he continued to serve his school.
cool.
So he just recognized his calling in what most people would be like, that's not a calling, that's just a job.
He lived within who God made him to be,
Yeah.
and he found great joy in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
you're going to have a hard time finding great joy in however you define yourself.
Right.
Unless you define yourself as God would define you.
Yeah.
Rather,
Yeah.
like work, lots of guys define themselves, every guy defines himself with work, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
And that disappoints them. Or you define
Yeah.
yourself with your family, and your kids become teenagers.
Yeah.
And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden now, wow, I must not be as great a parent as I thought right?
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know. I would say I love parenting teenagers so far. My daughter hasn't been a teenager, but just to push back on that, my thought teenagers are not that bad if your kids aren't teenagers yet, Chad.
That's cool. Thank you.
Like they go through it, but I don't know. That's a side
I'm just
topic.
trying to tell you that, look, if you
It's not what you think
if you
it is.
try to define yourself
Yeah.
by your parenting, there will be times
Absolutely.
when
Well, you will
those
get let
children
down.
will let you down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. And from early on. Yeah, I agree. And probably into their 40s and 50s.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Chet?
Not on that. I think the revelation comes from God just in many different ways. Sometimes it's not God speaking to you directly. A lot of my self-revelation has come from other people speaking into my life. I think of you and Brick and all these people that have spoken into my life. But God was speaking through you to me. So I think the self-revelation can come from God directly. I think he reveals himself, his special revelation, through people as well. Through his creation, he speaks to people. So I think there's just other avenues.
And I would throw this in too. Some of those tools, like like Strength Finder. I was all big into Strength Finder, but an Enneagram. I just redid the Enneagram.
Yeah.
And it gave me.
You gave a new number?
Well, it did.
Got a new number.
It did.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it came very close to 7 and a 2. Like I actually scored a little bit higher in 2 than 7.
Right.
But as I read those definitions, it kind of helped me understand a little bit. So I think those can be helpful for sure.
I think though, what's amazing to me about the Enneagram and about all of this kind of self-awareness stuff is that people are so craving it that we can actually just do it. Like we can just look at people and we can just identify strengths. And what is more naturally happening is we can identify weaknesses, and people carry that. Whether they acknowledge it when you say it, hey, you're really great with kids. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just like everybody else. They may not, but that actually, like, it's just like giving them a 7 or a 2 on the Enneagram. It's the same exact thing.
Right.
People are so desiring, like, what do you see in me? What am I? What do you see in me? That we actually have the ability to call it out in each other, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is we have the ability to call it out on ourselves.
Yeah, people crave the feeling of being known and understanding. And that's why when they take tests like that, they say, when I found out my number or whatever it is, a lot of people have the sentiment of, it really just nailed everything in my life.
Right.
And so I think you're right. I think we can do that with each other, but we fail to.
Yeah.
Why do you think we fail to do that? Why do you think we shy away from it?
What's weird, I mean, think about it in
We're
the
hungry.
context.
We're like too hungry to be able to say it.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, just if you think about it in like the diagnosis generation as well, like everybody's got a thing. There's some diagnosis that everybody's got, and labels, and we attach labels to everything and everyone. Enneagram is just another label. You're a 7, you're a 2. Labels can be awesome and they can be terrible.
Yeah, especially when you weaponize them.
Yeah, and so but a label, like there's multiple ways that you can do it. You can lean into the strength side, or you can be like, well, you know what, I'm a 3, so I'm really lazy. I don't know if 3s are lazy, but so I'm a 3, so that's the reason why I have this particular issue. Or there's just so many labels.
Use anything. You can use anything like that. For example, well, man, I lose my temper all the time, but I'm Italian.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's it,
Yep.
So I don't.
Yep.
You're right. We can't use any of those. And labeling, I think, is never. If I don't take the chance to get to know you,
Right.
then I'm just labeling you.
And
so
pigeonholing.
I don't have
Labeling and pigeonholing.
So I don't have to get to know you.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Here's
if
something.
I look in you and I see who you are,
Yeah.
then I can speak into your life.
Right. See, and I would say I would think labeling's awesome. I think it's amazing. It's just dangerous. It's like I want people to label me as gifted, as strong, as like you're gonna do. Like I need that. I need people to recognize what I can do well. But we just have this tendency to oftentimes kind of point out weakness and
When you weaponize it that it becomes dangerous. So the Enneagram, what's different about that one is it points out a lot of your weaknesses too.
Right.
And so when I share with you that I'm a 1, a lot of my weaknesses can be perfectionism.
Right.
So when you see me trying to do something really well, it can be really easy to weaponize and say, oh my gosh, you're being such a perfectionist.
You're such a 1.
So here's what's interesting about exactly. And that's what's dangerous about it. The Jesuit priests that really helped kind of put the Enneagram on the map, that helped develop a lot of the language and spiritual formation around it. Back in the day, the Jesuit priests, if you were to ask them what their Enneagram number was, it was like asking them how much they make a year.
Really?
It was that personal because
Wow.
when I share with you what number I am sharing with you the deepest like crevices of my soul. That when I share with you that I'm a 1, you know that my passion to be perfect can drive me insane sometimes. And so it's really it was a vulnerable and intimate place. And now there's people that they're putting in the number on their doors, and and so I know Jack's a 7, so this is how I'm going to work with him. So it can be really unhealthy when it's weaponized.
That's good.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's interesting.
I think that is
learned
interesting.
that the other day.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to take that. If you really need a revelation from God to figure out who you are. Right. All I would say is that the closer you get to Him, the more you're going to be. He'll open up your eyes to what you're gifted at and the things that really bring purpose to you. Right. And overall, the Bible gives us some good direction on how to do that. And what I would say mostly is you're going to find more purpose the closer you are with people, the more you're impacting people with your life. And those are the kinds of things that God challenges you to do. So that's when we're saying that, it's not like burning bush, but it is the closer you get, the more you're going to find your purpose.
Yeah, and some people that are listening right now, they've had that burning bush moment where it's like a radical change my life moment, and some people haven't.
Right.
And so I don't want to limit what God can do and can't do, because some people are going to have that crazy moment and some people aren't. But the one thing I think everyone has in common is we all have people we can talk to about it. So when you have those moments, like maybe you're like, I don't know if it was God. Well, man, God created his church for a reason. Go to the people you go to church with. And if you don't, find a church community and say, hey, here's what's God speaking to me. Do you see this in my life?
Let me throw out this next point, all right? To truly experience your full self, you're going to have to get up and start doing what God asks you to do. It's not enough to know it. It's not enough to feel, okay, that's my purpose. You got to actually do it. And I want to give you some Moses comments, all right? All right? So, hey, to me, sounds like burning bush, God speaking from it. Okay, pack my bags. It's like, that seems pretty obvious to me.
Yeah,
pretty
like
clear.
you should obey Moses.
Like you should probably do it.
right.
This is his response. Moses said, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?
So he doubted himself there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
2 verses later, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what's his name? What do I tell them? All right. Next, Moses answered, but what if they don't believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord didn't appear to you? Exodus 4:10, Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you've spoken to your servant. I have slow of speech and tongue. 3 verses later, Moses said, pardon your servant, Lord. Please send someone else.
I like how it just escalates, right? It's like, I don't think I can do it. Maybe I can, but they're not going to accept it. I think you should just send someone else.
I don't think you're listening to me, God. Here, I'm going to put it clear. Just send somebody else.
Yeah,
It's so funny.
Yeah. It's almost like after each one, he just went back and talked to his wife, and his wife said, did you actually tell him how you feel? Did you tell him?
Right?
Or did you just hint? I don't know.
It's pretty bold to go before God and have that entire conversation.
Well, I think my favorite part of kind of this whole picture is at 40 years old, he was ready to do it. He's known this call for a long time in this story. And at 40 years old, he stepped out and he took on Egypt. And he took out an Egyptian who was mistreating a Jew, and then his own people, the Israelites, turned on him. And so he went off and just like, forget this, I'm out. And then he spent the next 40 years. So at this point, he has failed. So he's already got I tried that, God. And second, he's 80.
Yeah.
Like he's 80 years old and he's a failed deliverer, and this is where God's like, hey, I got a job for you to do. Like, I didn't forget the calling I put on your life, even though you're old. And he, like, I don't know. I just think if you felt like you had a call in your life, and then you set out, you did the thing you were called to do, and then you failed at doing the thing you were called to do, at 80, would you be willing to try again?
Right.
I'm thinking, no. I'm done.
So I've been in conversation with this guy who founded this massive missions organization. And I read a little bit of his story, found out he's local, and I want to go visit him. And so he said, great, no problem, but you got to call me before 3 because I'm 80.
Wow.
Yeah, he should run for president.
Yeah. Isn't that, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
So what do you say to people who feel like they have a call, but haven't done it?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that it's possible that if God calls you to do something and you don't do it, that he's not going to speak to you again until you actually get up and do that thing?
No, I think he's just going to keep saying the same thing. I think you're never going to stop hearing it.
Okay.
I mean, you may have gaps where you put it aside, but there will always be that underlying, like, what if and what's possible. It's always going to be there.
What do you think that you will have a feeling of, I'm not quite fulfilled, or I'm missing my purpose, or?
Yeah, I think it'll be some of that. I think it'll be there will be this what if. At least that's been my like, what if, what could happen, what's possible. I think that'll just be there forever. I think that God will take us further when we begin to walk in the calling, in the things he's told us to do. I think he'll reveal more and more and more to us. But if we stop, Like it's like the people that I've met that it's just like it seems like every time I go to church, all they ever talk about is money, and they go like once a year. It's kind of like, well, maybe God's trying to talk to you about your money.
Yeah.
Like, because I've been to church every week, and that's not all they talk about.
And we ain't talking about, but but maybe the pastor said something once about money, so that's what they heard.
Yeah,
right?
or it's like, or maybe it's that person who's like, every time I go to church, all they ever talk about is the stuff going on in Africa. Maybe God is calling you to Africa. Maybe every time you show up, the reason why God's speaking Africa is for you. And so I do think that, and everything else is kind of tuned out. So I don't think he'll stop speaking to us, but I think he'll just continue to sit on the same thing.
Yeah.
I want to throw this out because I feel like in these spaces, I can get this feeling like, well, gosh, if I'm not happy, then maybe I've missed out on what God's calling me, and now I don't know what it is. And
yeah,
here's the thing that I see in everybody that was called in the Bible to do something.
Yeah,
like they couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
You know, like there was no option here for Moses.
Right.
He had to do it. It was so obvious. And then you have somebody like Jonah says, okay, this is what I want you to do. And he bolts and goes the exact opposite way. And, you know, God
still winds up doing it.
Still winds up doing this. And it's none of these people, I don't ever look at them and go, well, God called them because they were great.
Right.
Yeah. They're awesome, man. These guys were so much better than everybody else. It was just God called them.
Yep.
And he did it in a way that was obvious and they couldn't avoid.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's, again, it's, and here's, I think maybe the big thing, I'll put it out here. Not everybody's called to lead 1,000 people.
Yeah. Most people are not.
Right. And so like when somebody is wrestling with a calling, sometimes the calling is not the result.
Right.
The calling is the action. It's the steps that you're taking. You know, I've met a lot of young guys who are like, "Oh, I'm called to lead thousands." I'm like, "Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
We'll see." There's very few people that are called to lead thousands. But what are you called to do? What steps? What place? What words? What actions? What is it that you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people, you know, it's like, I just really feel, are you called to change the world? Like one person. One moment, one movement.
Right. And
So,
I do think we Americanize it.
Yeah.
Well, if God's really in it,
Yeah.
then that organization that you're going to found will become national.
Right.
Or you'll speak to thousands or whatever. And most of the time, at least, I mean, Jesus had time when he spoke to thousands.
Yeah.
But most of the time, he made impact one-on-one.
Yeah.
I heard a podcast that was this guy talking. It was interesting because his whole message is he's really over the pursue your dreams messaging that we're giving to kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because what happens to the kid that just finds a business that's, you know, doing good? They're not reaching thousands and thousands. Right. Well, like, did he like miss out? Is he not hitting the mark? So he's really against this whole pursuing your dream thing, because then it makes every kid feel like, well, you got to have this like one dream. If you don't hit it, like you've missed the mark. What about the kid that just wants to find a business that's helping something locally, or you know, something that doesn't go to this global or national organization?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So it was interesting because it was definitely some pushback against the dream culture.
Yeah, because what kid sets their goal to be the CEO of an insurance company?
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
It's probably not the dream.
It's probably not the dream, but that's who Scott Marshall is, who's a friend of ours.
Right.
And he is living his purpose in that. I think he finds his purpose not because he is doing that thing he has always hoped,
Right.
but he's using his passion in a way that God designed him, and he's still meeting with people one-on-one and caring for people's needs and all that. Right. A friend of mine who helps ex-NFL players find jobs, Andy Schroeder, has said this, and I've said this to you guys before. It's not finding what your passion is. It's doing whatever you're doing with passion.
Right.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right. Okay, last point. It's important to know, it's not as important to know who you are as whose you are. See what I did there?
Are you cringing a little?
A little bit. Yeah. It's a little rhymey for me.
Yeah.
Well, no, and also because you probably did these notes like this message a while ago when that was like phrase was like new. I think every pastor has said that phrase now.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But I do love it. I've used
totally
it a lot.
100%. So what does it mean?
I do love it. My favorite scripture I use when I'm talking about this concept is people ask Jesus, they say, they show him a coin of Caesar or whatever, and they say, should we pay taxes to him? What do you say, Jesus? And Jesus holds up the coin. He says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. And he says, whose picture's on it? And it's Caesar.
Right.
So the picture I've always seen there is like the image inscribed on that coin is Caesar. Well, what's the image that has been inscribed on you as a person? And that is the image of God. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Give to God what is God's.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? We're going to give to Caesar his coin because it's got his image on it. We're going to give our lives to God because our image is his image is on us.
Right.
So that's how I've always seen it, is like, I am God's. His image is on me, and it is shown in who I am. The scripture says it. So what do I need to give to him? What do I need to give to him in my life?
Yeah, I think most of what's going on in our service, in our changing of the world and impacting the world, something happens when you realize like you're not really that big of a deal, and when you start realizing like I'm just a player in God's story. Yeah. Like this is His story. It's what He's doing. For some reason, I had this memory come back to me of I remember being a little kid. My dad was a draftsman, so he drew. He designed houses and things.
Sure,
and
neat.
And I remember, so he could draw pretty well, especially when I was a little kid. I thought he could draw amazingly well. And I remember one time as a little kid, I remember drawing a car and looking at the car and thinking it was terrible. And I remember my dad like, what are you drawing? And I remember showing him my picture and how bad it was and feeling like this, I'm horrible at this. And I made a mistake. And then he took the picture and drew over the picture. Like, he's like, there's no mistakes. And he drew it. And he drew this really awesome car. And he took my picture and made it an awesome car. I feel like that's kind of our journey.
Yeah.
Like, we think what we're doing is so important. Like, God, I didn't do enough. Wasn't big enough. I didn't reach enough. I didn't say it right. I didn't do it right. And he's the one, he's like, there's just you're doing it with the right heart. I'll do the rest.
Yeah.
I'll make the picture look good. And I feel like that's all part of this calling. Is I feel like it gives us this ability to just enjoy it a little bit more and not take it quite as seriously, because it's like I don't have to be perfect.
He looks at Moses and goes, "Man, it's not because you're so great.
Right.
You were a baby that was floating down the river. You were the one that was picked up.
Yeah.
You're a murderer.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You're a shepherd, which was the lowest position.
Yeah.
Of that day. You're only good because of me."
Right.
And I think that's what he does with all of us.
Yeah.
So this is kind of how the conversation ends. Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" And God said, first line, "I will be with you."
Right.
It said, "I'm going to go with you."
Yeah.
That's what gives you value.
It's always enough, right?
Yeah, it is enough.
So does he end up going?
He does.
You'll
Turns
find out
out
next
the movie
time.
ends.
Yeah.
Turns out he looks just like Charlton Heston. He does all this kind of great stuff. And, here's another thing, right? The plan was to pull people out of Israel out and bring them to the promised land.
Right.
Doesn't even really get to go.
Nope.
Right.
God
Yeah.
uses him, but doesn't get to go.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, too. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, God uses him to invest in the next generation, which will be next time on
That's
10
right.
Steps Further.
That feels like a pretty good place to stop.
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys need us for any reason, you can reach us at Jonathan@CanyonSprings.org, Jack@CanyonSprings.org, or Chad@CanyonSprings.org. We'd be happy to pray with you and to give you some more wisdom or just hang out. Thanks, guys.
All right.
See you, everybody. Thank you.
Peace.
See you next time.
Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. You can find the show notes for this podcast on our website, 10stepsfurther.com. If you'd like to join us for another journey, or if you know someone else who's on this walk, subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. If you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, join our Facebook group by simply searching 10 Steps Further. And if you're ever in San Diego, come visit us at Canyon Springs Church. We'd love to meet you.